This might be our last question this morning. In 1 Samuel 28, did the witch at Endor really raise up Samuel? Verse 12 says that the woman saw Samuel, but verse 14 says Saul only perceived that it was Samuel. But then again, verse 15 calls the Spirit Samuel. So, are you familiar with the passage here? Let's read a little bit of it to get our bearings here. Verse 6, 1 Samuel 28:6, when Saul inquired of the Lord answered him not, neither by dreams, nor by Urim, nor by prophets, which were all legitimate ways for him to try to hear from God. Then said Saul unto his servant, seek me a woman that hath a familiar spirit, that I may go to her and inquire of her. And his servant said unto him, behold, there is a woman that hath a familiar spirit at Endor. And Saul disguised himself and put on other raiment, and he went, and 2 men with him, and they came to the woman by night, and he said, I pray thee, divine unto me by the familiar spirit, bring me him up, whom I shall name unto thee. And the woman said unto him, behold, thou knowest that what Saul hath done, how he hath cut off those that have familiar spirits and the wizards out of the land. And God in the law said, get them all out. Wherefore then layest thou a snare for my life to cause me to die? And Saul sware to her by the Lord, saying, as the Lord liveth, there shall no punishment happen to thee for this thing. Then said the woman, whom shall I bring up unto thee? And he said, bring me up Samuel. And when the woman saw Samuel, she cried with a loud voice. And the woman spake to Saul, saying, why hast thou deceived me, for thou art Saul? And the king said unto her, be not afraid, for what sawest thou? And the woman said unto Saul, I saw gods ascending out of the earth. And he said unto her, what form is he of? And she said, an old man cometh up and is covered with a mantle. And Saul perceived that it was Samuel, and he stooped with his face to the ground and bowed himself. And Samuel said to Saul, why hast thou disquieted me to bring me up? And Saul answered, I am sore distressed, for the Philistines make war against me, and God is departed from me, and answereth me no more, neither by prophets nor by dreams. Therefore I have called thee, that thou mayest make known unto me what I shall do. Then said Samuel, wherefore then dost thou ask of me, saying, the Lord is departed from thee, has become thine enemy? And the Lord hath done to him as he spake by me, for the Lord hath rent the kingdom out of thine hand, given to thy neighbor, even to David, because thou obeyest not the voice of the Lord, nor executest his fierce wrath upon Amalek. Therefore hath the Lord done this thing unto thee this day. Moreover, the Lord will also deliver Israel with thee into the hand of the Philistines, and tomorrow shalt thou and thy sons be with me. The Lord also shall deliver the host of Israel in the hand of the Philistines. Then Saul fell straightway all along on the earth, and was sore afraid because of the words of Samuel, and there was no strength in him, for he had eaten no bread at all, nor all the night. Now, is that really Samuel that came up? I think one of the strongest arguments that it was Samuel is that the biblical narrative calls him Samuel. But perhaps it calls him Samuel simply because that's who Saul thought he was talking to. I don't personally think it was Samuel. Now, you can disagree, that's fine. I've talked to people about this, and this has been one of those passages people have disagreed on. But here are 2 major problems for me to say this was actually Samuel that came up and spoke to Saul here. Number 1, since the Lord had not been answering Saul by legitimate means, why would He answer him through a forbidden means? It was against the law of God to deal with familiar spirits, to deal with witches, necromancy. It was against the law. So God's going to say, I'm not going to tell you anything, Saul. I'm departed from you. You're my enemy. But if you get the Ouija board out, I'll talk to you then. I mean, that doesn't make any sense to me. Here's my thing. God never violates His own word. He'd be violating His own law by doing this. Not only that, the Spirit only rehearsed to Saul what had already been declared. It was common. I mean, it was something that if it was an evil spirit masquerading as Samuel, the information he gives Saul was already declared about what would happen and how God had departed from Saul and so forth. It was already known. But then he gave new information by announcing that Saul and his sons would die the next day. Isn't that what he said in verse 19? Tomorrow shalt thou and thy sons be with me. Well, did they die the next day? The Bible doesn't say they did. And when you study the passage, and it takes some time to work through it, but when you study the passage and all the details of the locations of the armies, their movements from the time Saul visited the witch leading up to the battle, everything indicates that it took several days, if not weeks, for Saul and his sons to die. So if Samuel was giving revelation from God, and this was Samuel, he couldn't give them the wrong information. The indication in the passage is Saul didn't die the next day. And I don't have time right now to stop. I got notes on it where when you trace the context and everything that takes place, it does not, all indications are it took some time before he died, not the next day. So, if it was a devil, what would be the point of telling Saul, you're going to be with me the next day? Well, the point was to torment him. And that's what happened. When Saul got this information, he falls on the earth and he's just even more distressed. And maybe it was this message from what was supposedly Samuel that motivated Saul to go ahead and fall on the sword when he was wounded in battle. He said, this is it. I'm supposed to die. So I think it was the devil messing with him. I don't, the question is, did Saul go into paradise? Is that what Samuel meant by that? I just think he meant you're going to die. When he said, you're going to be with me, you're going to be with me in death. Saul became the enemy of God. The Bible said the Spirit of the Lord departed from Saul. Now you better rightly divide the word of truth, because Paul said we're sealed with the Spirit until the day of redemption. Aren't you glad you don't have to worry about the Spirit departing from you? It departed from Saul. It's what the Bible says. And so I would say that the main reason is why would God contradict Himself and violate His own law and allow this witch to bring up Samuel? And if it was Samuel, why is he an old man? You think when people die, they still look like they did when they died? I don't think that's how that works. But nonetheless, there's a lot of questions. I don't think you can be dogmatic one way or the other. But that's my 2 cents on it. Does anybody have something you want to add?